This is a short video about section 1.1.3 in Stein's Elementary Number Theory textbook. So this is about numbers factor as products of prime, so natural numbers too. So in particular, we'll just jump down to proposition 1.1.20, which tells us that every natural number is a product of prime numbers. So what's the proof of this look like? This is a good induction proof. So let's say n's a natural number. So if n equals 1, well then n is an empty product of primes, and so it's kind of vacuously true. So if n is prime, then we're all done. So now what's the only remaining case if I'm dealing with natural numbers? Well, it must be composites. Well, if n is composite, then we can factor n as a times b, where a and b are both smaller than n, and then what we'll do is we'll imply kind of our inductive hypothesis that numbers smaller than n should be able to factor into a product of primes. So therefore, we could conclude that both of these should factor as a product of primes. Therefore, the product n will factor as a product of primes too. So that's kind of like a quick induction without a lot of the details that maybe we're used to, but I hope that you kind of see the idea and how it all works. So two questions that kind of arise from this is that factorization unique? And as far as the natural numbers go, the answer to that question is yes, but what we've tried to do is maybe think about some different number systems or different, in this case we'll call them rings. So if I looked at this set, remember, which was all kind of linear combinations of integers and the symbol square root of -5. So this is some subset of the complex numbers. I should probably be a little more careful here, where a and b are integers. And remember that we saw in this ring that unique factorization is not necessarily a given, right? So in a number like 6, it's definitely the product 2 times 3, but I also have some other symbols that kind of you could use to factor 6, like 1 plus root -5 and 1 minus root -5. So that's another way to factor 6. And so anyway, if I'm in just the natural numbers though, then this kind of nonsense can't happen, but it's still interesting to think about some of the different number systems. Anyway though, so is this factorization unique? And then the other question though is how fast is such a factorization? So how quickly can we find it? And what the rest of this section in the book is about is mainly number 2 here. And in fact, most of our modern day cryptosystems, how do we encrypt information to send it over the internet? Most of it is based on this idea that in general, it's pretty hard to factor a large number. And so we'll talk about this in a little bit more detail later on. What I don't need you to know too much about is if you find it interesting, read it, but otherwise, if you don't know anything about, say, polynomial time, and this is kind of some computer science speak, you don't have to pay too much attention to this, but read it if you're interested in that kind of thing. But there's an open problem, is there an algorithm that can factor any integer in polynomial time? Polynomial time is supposed to be pretty fast. And so that's an open problem. And so we're told that it can be done on quantum computers. Now this book was written in 2017. I'm not sure if anything's changed since then as far as this goes. And that was done in 2001 that tried to factor 15. So that's kind of interesting. Anyway, though, a little bit further down, what I do hope that you catch if you are looking at this part of the section is we see this thing RSA. And RSA is a type of crypto system that is, again, centered around the fact that it's hard to factor a very large number into a product of primes. So we'll look more in depth at RSA later on in chapter 3 and 4, I believe. But right now, it's kind of telling us that you can get paid a substantial amount of money, I guess, to try to factor some of these numbers. So if I scroll down a little bit, so let's see, until recently there was a $10,000 bounty for trying to factor this number here. This number has 174 digits, and somebody was going to pay you $10,000 if you could factor it. And they gave it a name. They call it RSA 576. And the 576 is when you write this decimal number, right, base 10, when you write it in binary. If I scroll down a little bit more, Stein gives us some more history about some of these RSA challenges. So let's see, like this number, RSA 155, was factored in 1999. What else if we scroll down a little bit more? And in particular, what I'd like to mention as well is these numbers are special. Like this gigantic number, it's called an RSA number because its factorization, it doesn't have a bunch of primes in its factorization. It's only got these 2 primes in its factorization. So this P times this Q gives you back this number here. And that's one of the reasons we might call it an RSA prime. So maybe to try to set up a little bit later on when we talk about RSA, what's kind of the big idea? N is equal to P times Q. And so the point is, where P and Q are prime, can we find P and Q? And the point is that when N is super huge, it's very, very hard to find P and Q by, say, brute force. And that's why it can make a good way to encode information. And again, we'll look more at that a little bit later on as well. What's going on, just to say a little bit more, the smallest currently open challenge, again, as of 2017, is this RSA number, RSA 704. It's worth $30,000. So yeah, there's that one. Just to show you a little bit about Sage down here. So Sage has some built-in things about, let's say, how do you compute, say, how many digits are in this number? And just to show you, use this function len, so it stands for length. What's the length of that? And then n dot str2. What that does is it tells us that we're gonna use n here, and the dot is kind of this kind of attribute. And we're gonna count the digits, and the 2 in there tells us we're doing this binary base 2. And when you run that, it should give us 704. Now if I do the same thing, but I change it to a 10, that'll be the decimal digits. In other words, like, you know, how many digits does this number have? And that's what gives us 212. And another thing we could use save to check is n dot is prime. So again, it's going to check, is this number prime? And we see that it's false. So just to show you that one, Sage is fairly fast if I'm connected fairly well to the internet. If I just said n is, say, equal to something like, I don't know, I'm just kind of hitting numbers on my keypad here. What I could do is I could do something like, how about n dot is prime? Let's check it out. Is it like this random number I wrote down? Probably not. And so no, it's not prime. And what I could do is ask Sage to factor it. So I'll say factor n. And when I do that, it spits out its factorization. And in this case, it factors into 2 times that other prime number there. So anyway, I hope that you see that, well, Sage is fairly fast. I mean, that was a pretty big number, n, right? But I guess in the grand scheme of things, what are large numbers? We're talking about numbers that have hundreds or maybe thousands of digits. And that's kind of what, again, makes global cybersecurity a thing.